Hello YouTube, man. How you guys doing today? It is me again, your favorite Texas trucker, and I am sitting inside of the maintenance bay here at Petro, waiting on getting a drive tire replaced. I have a bad tire, and so I'm getting it pulled off and replaced. But while I was here, I had a couple of things on my mind. I did another video a little bit earlier today, and there's so many things, man, that I want to cover, and you know, and you just can't do it all in one video, and I've just had no time, and I've still got stuff I got to do today as soon as I get this done, anyway, what I wanted to do was take a few minutes and talk to you about some controversial issues. The controversial issue has been coming up. As much as I try to ignore it, it keeps coming up, and it comes up, and it comes up, and it just doesn't go away. It's not going to go away. I know it's not going to go away. Burying my head in the sand and wishing it would go away ain't going to make it go away. And you know, this world that we live in today, it's not the same world I grew up in. I don't know what's changed, but the attitude has gotten really bad. And, you know, and I've tried to make the best of it, tried to ignore it, tried to separate myself from negative people, and it's just still there. You know, the government promotes it. Everybody's pushing it. And what I'm talking about is race relations. And there was a time when we were really trying to make race a non-issue. And when I mean a non-issue, I mean that there was a time when we were really trying to deal with other people based on the content of their character and not the color of their skin. You see, as a white person who grew up in a ghetto neighborhood and was involved in gangs when I was young, I know where y'all are coming from, okay? But I don't think that y'all know where we are coming from. And so I want to take a moment, because there's this phrase, white privilege, that's been going around so much lately, I'm sick of hearing it. You see, there's this mystical white privilege that we seem to all be privy to, that gives us all kinds of advantages in this country that people of color do not have. And it opens doors for us that people of color can't get through. And so what I want to do is I'm going to take a moment, and I am going to open those doors, and I'm going to teach you how, as a person of color, you can have access to this mystical white privilege, okay? I'm going to teach you, and I know there's a lot of white folks that might be mad at me for letting this secret out of the bag, you know, because it's been such a well-kept secret over the years about how to get it, you know. But there's been a few people of color that have slipped through the cracks, and they've gotten a hold of this white privilege, and they've you know, they've had all the benefits that come with it, you know. And it's not right, I don't think, that only a small percentage of people of color should be able to have access to this white privilege. I think all of them should have it. I think everybody should. So I'm going to just throw the cat out of the bag, and I'm going to give you a step-by-step method on exactly how you can get this white privilege. And then I want to talk a little bit about exactly what white privilege is from a white person's perspective, okay? So here it starts when you're really, really young, okay? And it doesn't matter where you grew up at. It doesn't matter if you grew up in, you know, Queens, New York, or if you grow up in Los Angeles, you know, or if you're in Fifth Ward in Houston, you know, or if you grow up in a middle class neighborhood, it doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter where you grew up at, because where you grow up at doesn't define this white privilege. There's many white people that have grown up in less than stellar circumstances with no money, not a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of, who have grabbed a hold of this idea and run forward with it and walked out, at the end of life as millionaires, or, at least very well off and very happy with their position in life. So here it is. Here's the very beginning part of it. Okay. Go to school. You have to. I mean, you can't have white privilege without being educated. It's just not possible. Not even white folks can get white privilege without being educated. You see, that's the first part. That's the first thing that you have to do, is you have to go to school. And you have to stay in school. You see, you have to stay in school and you have to graduate. But if you didn't do that, if you're watching this video and you've already gotten past those school years and you haven't, you didn't get that education, or you can't read, you can't write, or you can't put a sentence together in anything but Ebonics, don't worry. I mean, you can fix it. You can fix it. Just, start educating yourself. There's many ways to start educating yourself. There was a black man I don't particularly care for who couldn't read or write, and he got put in prison, and he taught himself how to read and write by using the dictionary. He just taught himself, amazing. It's an absolutely amazing thing that he accomplished. Taught himself how to read and write, and became a leader in the black community. I don't care much for the man. I don't care to discuss his name, but if you're in the black culture, I'm sure you know who I'm referring to. So don't fret. If you didn't complete high school, if you dropped out of high school, you dropped out of college, or you didn't finish grade school, hey, it's not too late. You can still educate yourself. So the very first part of it is you have to have an education. So if you're young and you're a person of color and you're watching this video and you want the advantages that white people mystically have, that your parents have told you that only white people get, then here's the first rule. The first rule is you have to get an education. And I don't just mean stay in school and skim through. I mean, you really have to learn. You go in there, apply yourself, learn, and you'll get that education. In other words, not only do you have to attend, but you also have to pass. All right, and not pass because somebody gave you a pass, but pass because you earned the pass. Okay, so that's the first thing that you have to do, get an education. And if you've already passed them school years, then I suggest it's going to be a little rougher on you. You got a little bit more work you got to do. So I suggest you get to it and get started now. Library is a wonderful resource. The internet, wonderful resource. Man, you've got all kinds of video classes that'll teach you how to write and how to read and how to speak and and whatever. So that's the first thing. Learn to articulate yourself in a manner that people wish to listen to. All right, that's the first thing right there. Okay, that's the very first basic part of white privilege. And if you don't have that, then you just can't get it. No matter how hard you try, no matter how hard you want, you just can't do it, because being educated is the key to white privilege. Second is you have to set goals. You see, white privilege, these white people that have this mystical white privilege, if they don't get it without reaching for it, they have to grasp it, they have to find it, they have to look for it, they have to get it. So they set goals. They find something that they want to be better than what they are. So you have to set goals. Without goals, you're never going to have this white privilege, because you'll just, keep on spinning your wheels through life, never going anywhere, never getting anything, never doing anything in life. And you'll never change. There's a saying that I used to use a long time ago, when I was striving for this white privilege, and that is that if I keep getting or if I keep doing what I've been doing, I'm going to keep getting what I've been getting. And if I want what I ain't never had, I got to do what I ain't never done. You see, I grew up in a gang culture. I grew up in the streets. I grew up in 4th Ward in Houston, and my mom was scraping by, just fighting for everything that we had. We lived off of kielbasa sausage and rice and red beans and rice, and the cheapest meals that you could ever put together, because we couldn't afford anything else. But my mom, she just kept scraping forward and kept scraping forward and kept scraping forward, and she had a goal. She had a goal that she wanted to reach in life, and she reached that goal. She's gotten there. She now owns her own business. She owns an insurance company, and you know, she's doing very well for herself. And she got there because of this mystical white privilege. And this mystical white privilege comes with having an education and setting a goal. All right. So her goal was to get out of the situation that she was in and to earn enough income to be better than what she is today. So if you're in a situation that you're not happy with, if you're in the ghetto, if you're living on the streets, if you walk outside your street and you got to be worried about drive-by shootings, or if you can't walk down your street without seeing gang tags all over everybody's house and fences, shit like that, you know, and you got broke down cars fucking sitting in your driveways or in your front yards, you know, and your house looks like it's done survived the cataclysm, you know, then, but yeah, you probably need to set a goal to do something a little bit better with yourself and get out of that situation. All right, so that's the second thing. You have to set a goal. The third thing is you have to develop a work ethic. Okay, so to develop a work ethic, that means that you get out there and you work hard. Now, I was told growing up, now this is part of that white privilege thing, but I was told when I was growing up that if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing right, and if you ain't going to do it right, don't do it at all. And so, you know, from very young, I was 12 years old when I got my first job, and I've held a job ever since. And at 12 years old, I got out there and I got a job knocking on doors, selling subscriptions of the Houston Post to people in my neighborhood. You know, they'd come pick us up in a van, and they would take us around to the neighborhoods they wanted us to case, and we'd run around and we'd sell subscriptions to the Houston Post. And at 12 years old, I was actually making pretty decent money. You see, early on, I developed a work ethic that said that I was willing to do whatever I had to do to legally, you see, here's the key, here's another key to white privilege, is legally make as much money as I could possibly make. So at 12 years old, I was banking paychecks of $160, $180, and this is way back in the 80s, you know, and matter of fact, right at about 1980, and that was pretty good money for a 12-year-old at that time, which brings up the second thing, and the second thing is to develop an economic ethic. Economic ethics means that I don't go blow everything that I have. I put money into the bank. I establish a habit of saving income, saving money, so that if I get a $160 paycheck, I might have kept $40, $50 of that to spend on things that I wanted to spend money on, and the other 120 of it went into the bank. So by the time I was 15 years old, I had enough money to go out and buy my own truck, my own car. See, that's how white privilege works. You know, I worked hard to make money. I saved that money because I developed a good work ethic and a good economic ethic, a good ethical economy for myself. And I was able to save money and established at 12, 13, 14, 15 years old the idea that I needed to maintain a savings account and to save money so that I could have things that I wanted later. That way I wasn't breaking into people's houses, stealing people's stuff, and I wasn't, you know, breaking into stores and robbing folks and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Now, granted, I fell into a bad crowd when I was young, but I still had those same ethics that said I want to be a little bit better than what I am, and I want to have a little bit more than what I've got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work to establish that. And so I backslid a little bit because I got involved in the wrong crowd. I got involved in gangs, and I ran around for several years of my life looking like a thug. And as I run around several years of my life looking like a thug, I began to get profiled, and I began to get harassed. I remember many a time when I was standing on the street corner, sitting there with my hands behind my head, on my knees, facing the wall, while cops were running around frisking us, looking for weapons, looking for drugs, looking for things that, you know, that we weren't supposed to have. And so that brings up my next thing. You see, if you don't want to get profiled, if you don't want to get harassed by the police, and this is important, don't be a thug. Don't dress like a thug. Don't act like a thug. Don't listen to a thug's music. Don't talk like a thug. If you walk like a thug, you dress like a thug, so you look like a thug, and you act like a thug, chances are pretty damn good you're a thug. That's the bottom line, you know. And if you act like a thug, you walk like a thug, you talk like a thug, you present yourself like a thug, when cops look at you, what they're going to see is a thug. They're not going to see a black man. They're not going to see a white man. They're not going to see a Hispanic man or an Asian man. They're going to see a thug. You're a thug. Therefore, you're a problem. Period. End of story. It's about how you dress. how you present yourself, how you want other people to see you. And so that comes up to the next key to this white privilege. This next key to the white privilege is to present yourself in a presentable manner. To present yourself in a manner that people can look at and say, well, that is a respectable man right there. That is a respectable person. Because if you present yourself in a manner where you look like a thug, you walk like a thug, and you talk like a thug, then they're not going to look at you and say you're presentable. They're going to look at you and they're going to say, that guy is a thug. And if you want to get this white privilege, you have to dress in a respectable manner. That means pull your pants up over your ass, wear clean, decent clothes, and present yourself in a professional manner. All right? And so, hell, we're halfway through this white privilege thing now. I mean, we're going there. We're getting there. All right, so now you have a work ethic. You have an economic ethic. You're saving money. You're making money. You're saving money. You're not going to be a thug. You're not going to act like a thug. You're not going to walk like a thug. You're not going to talk like a thug. All right, well, let's build on that a little bit more, because you can't do thug things. That includes doing drugs. Okay, so if you do drugs and you get around the drug crowd, then you're going to get profiled as a drug user. If you get profiled as a drug user, then you can't have this white ethic. It's not going to fucking work. This whole white privilege thing, it doesn't come to drug users. You have many white people that are drug users. They end up in prison because they're stupid. They don't have white privilege. They're in prison because they're stupid. So, that goes in with the whole thug thing. You get rid of the drugs, you get rid of the alcohol, you present yourself in a presentable manner, you have a strong work ethic, and you save money. Now here comes the next thing. You've set goals, now you got to reach these goals. So what you do is you work hard. And you work hard and you climb the ladder. You show that you're dependable. You're always on time at work. You always do what you have to do. You don't just do the minimum amount that's required at work. You see, that's a secret that us white folk, we kind of know. We kind of know, us white folk, that in order to get forward in work, you have to become invaluable to your employer. That means that you have to be more valuable than the next person. Anybody can come in and do the minimum amount, but you don't want to do the minimum amount. You want to do the maximum amount that you can do. Hell, we even do other people's work for them. We come in here, we see a job that needs to be done, we do it. We learn everything that we can learn so that we can climb to that next step. We climb to the next step. I no longer have to deal with those people underneath of me anymore. You see, now I've attained some status. I've attained some status at work. I've attained some position at work. And so I'm able to separate myself from the menial things and start working upward towards the management type things, you see. And every job has this point at which you can't climb any further. And when you reach that point at which you can't climb any further, then it's time to start looking afield. It's time to start looking around you and to see if there's a better opportunity that allows you, with the skills that you've attained so far, to get into a company that would allow you to progress even further than where you're currently at. You know what I'm saying? And so it takes work. It takes years of work. It takes long work. There's sometimes you might be at a place for 2 or 3 years before anybody even comes forward and says, hey, man, we recognize the job that you're doing and we appreciate the job that you're doing, and so we're going to promote you and we're going to let you start climbing this ladder. Might take years, but that's what it takes to get this white privilege. And I'm starting to run out of time, so I may not be able to finish everything. So let me try to speed through some of this. All right, so you've set goals and you've established a work ethic, and your work ethic has brought you into the workplace, which brings me up to this whole minimum wage issue. Minimum wage was never meant to be a lifestyle. Minimum wage was never meant to be a wage where you earn an income that you can live off of. That's why it's called minimum wage. Minimum wage is for people just entering the workforce. So if you're in a minimum wage job, get the fuck out of it. Get out of the minimum wage job. Learn something other than minimum wage skills. All right, so you have to constantly better yourself. Go to technical schools. Learn skills that give you technical skills. Learn computer skills. Learn how to work on computers. Learn how to work on cars. Learn how to work on trucks. Learn how to drive trucks. Learn how to do something more than flip a burger at Burger King or Arby's. And hey, do you want ketchup with that? Will that be with or without bacon? That'll be $3.95. Do better than that. You see, that's this whole thing with this white privilege that everybody talks about. This thing with white privilege means that I'm not willing to accept second best. I'm going to keep fighting forward, and I'm going to keep doing whatever I have to do to get forward in life so that I don't have to live in the ghetto. Which brings up the next point for white privilege, and that's cut out negative things from your life. You have to cut out all these negative people from your life. You have to, and I don't care if they're your T-Jone, your mom, your dad, your grandma, or whatever, your grand T, whatever the fuck it is you want to call them. I don't care who the fuck they are. If they're a bad influence on your life, you have to get them out of your life. You have to cut them out like a surgeon. You cut those people out of your life. You got all these nasty ass girlfriends that, are fucking all your homeboys. Cut that shit out of your life. You got these fucking drug using ass fucking cousins and people in your life that all they're concerned with is where they're going to get their next high from. Cut them fucking people out of your life. You got mom and dad and grandma and grandpa that are talking about how the white folks always keeping you down. Well, that attitude is not going to get you into this white privilege that you seem to want so goddamn bad. What that attitude is going to do is that's going to breed negativity. It's going to breed a victim mentality that says that everybody in the world is against me and they got their foot on my neck. Yeah, well, everybody in the world was against me too. I couldn't tell you how many times people told me I'd never amount to nothing and how I would never be anything in life. But, I kept moving forward. I kept fighting forward. I kept going for it. And I cut people out of my life. I even cut my whole family out of my life for about 15 years. And to this day, the only part of my family that I associate with is my mom and my stepdad and their kids. Because I cut them out of my life like a disease. Because that's what they were a disease. You accept the victim mentality in life and you try to lay the blame for the fact that you can't get forward in life on the fact that somebody's grandmother's, grandfather's, uncle's, cousin's, great-great-grandfather's brother owned slaves 300 fucking years ago, and you're never going to get ahead because nobody in this world today, nobody in America today has owned a slave in anybody's living history. There's not a single person alive in the world today that was a slave, that knew anybody that was a slave, that owned a slave, or knew anybody that owned a slave. So get rid of the victim mentality. That's the most important part to the white privilege right there, is get rid of the victim mentality. Stand forward, take responsibility for your own actions, take responsibility for your own failures, take responsibility for your own decisions. Strive forward for something better. Don't take second best, and quit blaming people because you're an idiot. It's your fault you're an idiot. It's not anybody else's fault. Your decisions, the decisions that you've made in this world, have dictated the person that you've become. And contrary to popular belief, white folks don't have any goddamn privilege. We bust our ass and we work non-stop. We work. We work 40 hours a week. We work 60 hours a week. We work 70 hours a week. We work 100 hours a week. We work one job. We work two jobs. We work three jobs. We work two jobs and do handyman work on the side. We do whatever it takes to make money. Legally. We don't sell drugs. We don't sell drugs because selling drugs ain't going to get you anywhere but in jail. Yeah, you might make a bunch of money on the top, but eventually your ass is going to be in jail because white folks are not drug dealers. They're too goddamn stupid to be drug dealers. They get caught. They end up in jail. So you want this white privilege that you're talking about? Those are the steps you follow to get it. Those are the things that you get. Those are the things that you have to do. And honestly, it doesn't matter if you're black, green, purple, brown, yellow. And it might matter if you're purple. People look at you crazy. It doesn't matter what color you are. If you apply yourself and you follow those principles, then you're going to get ahead in life. Not only you're going to get ahead in life, you'll probably get further than me. And here's the very last thing I want to tell you. All these things, all these steps that I've taught you today to grasp a hold of this white privilege, teach it to your kids. And when you teach it to your kids, they'll grow up with the same privileges that you worked for to earn. Now, I said that was the last thing. There is one more. There's one more thing, and it's probably, honestly, the most important thing that I can add to this before we're over with, and I'll make it quick. You see, the biggest advantage that you can have, and not all white folks and not all white people with privilege have followed this, but the biggest thing that you can do, the most important thing that you can do, especially in this godless world we live in, is to take your success, all that stuff that you work so hard for, and give glory to God for it. And if you'll do that, you'll succeed. So, that's my rant today on this issue of racism and white privilege. Y'all take care. Hope I didn't piss too many people off. If I did, feel free to tell me about it, and I'll feel free to tell you I don't give a shit. Y'all take care, and peace out.